I hope that you enjoy our videos, and please press like. It'll help us a lot. Maybe some of you have seen the chart of the performance that we have had, and there are two things I'll say about that. One is that performance is very good, but the other is very volatile. And therefore, that's another reason why, please do your own due diligence and be very careful on making sure you do that. Maybe our most profitable and most dramatic investment in the silver miners has to be Endeavor Silver. We've been involved in it in a major way all the way back to, I guess, the beginning of 2024, when the stock was particularly low because they needed more money to finish the new Terronera mine, and they hadn't gotten it. But then they did, I believe, in February of last year. And boy, I got to be careful on last year. It won't be 2024 for much longer now, will it? Let me break away to give everyone a salute for real to Happy New Year, and I hope everything goes well for everybody in the new year. So Endeavor did get the money, which actually was a combination of they sold some stock, and then that additional equity allowed them to complete their loan agreement. And the whole process, we're talking about several $100 million. So we got a strong move up during the first half of 2024 in Endeavor. And then, alas, we had some problems, which I hadn't expected. And because I hadn't expected them, if you look at our chart of performance, there's a period starting about, I think, in June or July of 2024, where things started to go badly for our little portfolio, and that continued through the rest of 2024, primarily because their big mistake, in my opinion, was they predicted that they'd be done with completing the mine by the end of 2024. No, it didn't happen, and of course that disappointed a lot of investors, including yours truly. And the stock, which had gotten as high as, I think, over 5 at one point, was down 50% from that. And I did not do a good job in being cautious in cutting back on my margin soon enough, alas. And so you will see from the chart that it took until, I guess, April of 2025, when the sluggish period for actually all the silver mining stocks, and Endeavor in particular, started to go the other way. And of course, the main reason for that was that the price of silver really started, in the last, 8 months has been a spectacular surge. On top of that, of course, Endeavor did ultimately finish the Terronera mine, which was in 2 steps. First, to be able to say, okay, we can start production. And then in, I believe, the 1st of October, the company said, all right, we're operating at full capacity. We're not going to get as big an earnings as we might have for a couple of reasons in 2026, one of which was that the company said, well, we were thinking, this is, I think, a year ago, we were thinking in early 2026 to be really having a very rich ore that we were going to be able to really show some big earnings on, whereas now they're saying they've got a big heap of ore to process, which is going to be relatively low quality in terms of how much. So just how big the earnings gains are going to be for 2026, maybe a little less. But nevertheless, just as with all these silver miners, this huge increase in the price of silver is very dramatic. There's another thing that is holding back under contract Endeavor's earning process, and that is the deal that they made with the people who loaned them all this money, was that for something like 2 years, I haven't checked recently, which includes the most recent quarter, their production of gold above a price, I believe, of $2,200 an ounce or $2,300 an ounce. They won't get any of it for the next couple of years, something like that, and that goes to the lender. And of course, now with gold at over 4,000 an ounce, that's a big factor. And that, I believe, was one of the factors that caused the recent quarter, the third quarter of 2025 for Endeavor, to be not that successful. And those cuts in earnings as I say, will go on for another 2 years. On the other hand, with the huge increase in the amount of silver that they're producing and a huge increase in the price of silver, I expect to see very, very big earnings overall for the company. The revenue increase quarter to quarter has been spectacular for the past year, and that will continue. I think some of the estimates are that revenues for this year, after being up dramatically from 2024, will be up another, say, 40-50% next year, and that's assuming that there's no further major gain in either silver or gold, particularly with silver, which I think is kind of a conservative factor. We continue to believe that we could have another strong increase in the price of silver, and so therefore overall we also recommend that you take a look at Endeavor, and for goodness sakes, even if it breaks through to a new high, let's say it gets up to 12 or 13 in the next month or two, I would say don't sell. There's more. If you want a copy of my book, The Speculator's Mosaic, just check below, or it can also be bought on Amazon.